video, and today I'll be discussing the concepts of market equilibrium, and this is of course brought to you by Economics Made Easy. So let's get right into it. First of all, when I say market equilibrium, I mean that there's actually a state of equilibrium in the market, meaning there's a balance where efficiency is actually maximized, and this is the position that producers, consumers, and all different stakeholders actually want to be in. Now, there are various things that can cause a disruption in this, which I'm gonna delve deeper into in this video. So let's begin. The first thing that can cause this is a shift in the demand curve to the right. Now, let's expand on this further. First of all, there's a shift to the right. So that means that the demand is actually increasing. It's shifting, it's increasing, right? So there's a shift in demand curve to the right, and this can be caused due to non-price determinants. In other words, when we actually hear that according to the law of demand, there's an inverse relationship between price and quantity demanded, assuming all other factors remain constant, ceteris paribus, right? Now, we say ceteris paribus because we assume all other factors remain constant, right? Now, one of those factors are the non-price determinants. So that can be advertising, that can be price of complementary goods, price of substitution goods. So now, for example, if it's a very hot sunny day outside and you want an ice cream, but now let's say the price of the ice cream is 40 kroner, you still might buy it because it's very hot weather, right? And you feel like you need it, so you're gonna buy it. But then on the other hand, if it's a very cold day, the exact same day, you're probably not gonna buy the ice cream at that price. So now what this actually does is that it increases the price of the good from P to P1, because now since consumers are actually demanding more of this good, the quantity demanded will increase. So there's actually that excess demand. So these higher prices will discourage some buyers in the process. So as a result, these prices will rise. Now, the prices received increase, so producers will gain more revenue. So a new equilibrium point will be reached, leading to a new equilibrium price and quantity. Now, the next thing is a shift in the demand curve to the left. This means that demand, of course, now decreases, and this could be caused due to those non-price determinants. So in the long run, the reduction in demand will lead to fewer producers in the market who can't operate profitably at the lower price and will leave. Over time, the supply curve may shift leftward, reducing producer production capacity and stabilizing prices. If demand picks up in the future, producers can even increase output again, but they will need time to actually adjust to those changes. Now, as you can see in this diagram, the price will decrease from P to P1 as the demand is reducing. So now what you're actually noticing here is that there's an excess supply as suppliers are producing more than how much consumers are willing to buy. Now, in order to solve this problem, producers have the incentive to lower prices in order to attract more buyers. As the price falls, the incentive for producers to supply the good also decreases. So now what happens is that they might want to reduce production by, for example, doing various things, for example, actually scaling back that production if they cannot operate at that lower price. This then eventually results in the market setting in at a new equilibrium point where the lower demand curve intersects with the supply curve. At this point, the equilibrium price is lower than before, and the equilibrium quantity sold in the market is also lower than before. With the lower prices and reduced quantity sold, producers will earn less revenue, so many producers will cut back in production to actually adjust to that lower demand. Now, as speaking from the stakeholder perspective, consumers benefit from the lower prices that arise. A shift in the demand, however, if many producers exit the market, consumers may actually experience a reduction in price or quality. So, despite the lower prices, overall consumption decreases. Now, one more thing here, that now just to make that part more clear about the fact that the quantity is demanded is decreasing, is because it's reducing from Q to Q1. So for every single unit that's supplied, so at any single price point, there's still a lower reduction in the quantity demanded. And I want to get back to this first slide, where I've put a challenge as well, where can you catch the mistake I made in the slideshow? And now the mistake that I've actually made is my x-axis. So as you can see, it should be price, and now because I am dealing with shifts, it should actually be quantity. You guessed it, quantity demanded. So it can be quantity or quantity demanded, but it should not be quantity over time. So that was a little challenge there. So if you got that, really good. All right. So now the third factor is a shift in the supply curve to the right. Applied before is pretty much the same here. So the supply will shift to the right from S to S1 and may be caused due to determinants of supply like technology improvements or shocks and unpredictable events, but that would actually lead in the supply reducing, so or increasing, you never know. But in this factor, technology improvements will actually shift that supply curve to the right, and of course this means increased supply. Now the only exception being a change in price, which would cause only a movement along the supply curve, assuming price remains constant at P. Quantities demanded will be at Q, but the quantity supplied will remain at Q1. This means that prices will begin to fall, and this process continues until a new equilibrium is reached at P1 and Q2. More will be demanded and supplied, but at a lower price. Because now, as you can see, since the supply is increasing, you can see that the quantity is decreasing because you actually have the problem of the excess supply, and you need to get that excess supply off. How are you going to get it off? You're going to reduce the price so then it attracts new consumers. You get me? Perfect. So now this is the last one we're going to deal with, shift in the supply curve to the left. And I've really went into detail with this one because in a lot of cases, especially today with scarcity, I feel like it's really important that we emphasize this diagram specifically. Okay, so as you can see this, and again, I just want to show you here, we're dealing with supply, quantity, supply, quantity over time, no. All right. So now there's a leftward shift in the supply curve from S to S1, which occurs due to a change in non-price determinants. A leftward shift in the supply curve indicates that the quantity supplied at every price level has decreased. This results in a new market equilibrium with higher prices and lower quantities sold. Since less of the good is available at each price, the quantity supplied is now less than the quantity demanded, causing the problem of excess demand. So now demand is greater than the actual supply. So what happens now? This leads to shortages as consumers want to buy more than what's being supplied at that price. In order to eliminate these shortages, the prices will increase. So, my apologies guys, I did not move to the diagram. So now let me show this again. So now the supply is shifting from S to S1. Now what happens is that because there's a shift, now as you can clearly see, the quantity demanded has reduced, right? And the price is increasing because now demand is greater than supply, which you can clearly see at this point. As at this point they were equal, but now you can see the supply is here, right? The demand is there, so you can see that vertical distance, which clearly shows us as well. And it's for this reason that they actually need to increase the prices. And the supply expands if producers can do so profitably at the price. Now there's a new equilibrium where the quantity demanded matches the reduced quantity supplied. But this occurs at a higher price and lower quantity than before. Consumers will now pay more for the same product due to the reduced availability. At the new equilibrium, fewer units of the good are bought and sold because both supply has decreased, right? And higher prices due to the quantity demanded from Q to Q1. The market may also experience volatilities, as I mentioned, because as prices adjust, not all consumers may be able to afford the good at the new higher price. Producers that can still supply the good at the higher price may see increased revenues, but some producers that cannot sustain operations due to these higher input costs may leave the market, reducing competition and overall supply further. So now I'm actually delving deeper into those real world applications and kind of strengthening that analysis, so it makes a lot more sense. consumers now face higher prices and may have to reduce their consumption of the good. Those more sensitive might switch to substitutes or reduce overall spending of the good. Fewer units of the good are available in the market, leading to shortages or difficulty in finding the product, especially for essential goods. And your essential goods being water, just normal vegetables, fruits, etc. If higher prices make it profitable, producers may increase the supply and new firms may enter the market, because now what happens is that they're actually attracted by the potential of the profits, but some people may permanently shift to those substitutes, leading to reduced long-term acceptance of that good, long-term demand of that good. So I hope that diagram makes it clear there. And overall, that just concludes this entire topic. And so these are the factors that actually explain to us why it's so vital to stay at that equilibrium point. And I'm sorry for all my stutters. I'm a bit sick, but we just have to remain consistent. But I still hope that you found a lot of clarity through this video. So whenever they're asking you in an exam about the actual concept or market equilibrium and why it's important for firms to achieve efficiency from various stakeholder perspectives, you can actually draw these diagrams, explain why shift in the demand curve to the right can be positive or negative, and how every single time there's a disturbance from the original equilibrium, stakeholders will always try to do their best to get back to that equilibrium point or as close as they possibly can, because we've noticed in all of these diagrams that sometimes you're not actually able to get back to the equilibrium point completely, right? Because sometimes it results in higher prices and a lower quantity demanded, for example. So it's also important that even if you cannot achieve full efficiency, you try to get as close as you can to that. And this idea is also explored more in other concepts like minimizing welfare losses and negative externalities, but that will come later. But overall, I really hope that you guys enjoyed this video, and I'll see you guys next time.